Welcome to the Invite Change Learning and Team Development YouTube channel. I'm Sarah Graves, Chief Relationship Officer for Invite Change. Today, we share generative conversation with Jana M. Harvey, our CEO. The idea for this conversation came from my observations and curiosity about her evolution during and before COVID. I work with many clients who share with me their frustration and overwhelm and even numbing by Zoom meetings, by the extended hours they are working due to the hybrid workplace, and the constant breakdowns in communications across divisions, generations, and cultures. These clients speak about the lack of empathy, and it starts at the leadership level. It could be a meeting that has no check-in, go straight to the agenda. It could be a new program that gets rolled out and there's simply no room put on the agenda for Q&A or interactive opportunities during the meeting. On one extreme, a client found out they were laid off. It happened in less than 15 minutes, and there was zero time for the employee to have a response. Our team at Invite Change was also impacted and challenged by the circumstances. Meanwhile, our CEO was showing up and interacting in new and expanded ways. While we were in global crisis, the flavor, quality, and tenor of our meetings, emails, work projects, social media, and the delivery of our work changed. It fostered more autonomy and deeper belonging. How did that happen? And how did this entrepreneurial firm stay afloat? That quality of resilience starts at the top. So let's listen now to this conversation with Jana M. Harvey, CEO, author, TED Talk speaker, and master certified coach.
So I think necessity was the first mother of invention here, really. With a plate runneth over, there was no way I could keep my fingers on the pulse. There's just no way. And there wasn't anything for me to write emails about on the weekend. I think what happened in the first 4 months of 2019 as we were building, I had to trust. I had to trust the 15 ambassadors we had around the country who were building up the coaching teams. I had to trust our technology team that they could figure out with the customer what it was that we were going to deliver on and how to build the interface systems and to be compliant. There's so much complexity to this that my job was to keep the North Star clear and to provide problem-solving space. So as the people who were skilled could do the work, that they had a place to come and say, this is the roadblock I have. I need a decision on this. I need resource here. We need to pivot, whatever it was. And that my job actually was removing interference as opposed to blocking and tackling. So, sort of the necessity of delegation and, gratitude and deep trust for the skills we had in the team. There wasn't anything for me to chase. They were busy enough when there was nothing else that we could put on the plate, truthfully. It was just not going to happen. And it didn't really need to, right? The continuing with the existing business was operating, as it always has and moving right along. And this new business was exciting. So I leaned into what were people feeling inspired and enthusiastic about, because I know that always is the antidote to fear.
And then what did you notice about that, your shift and then the ripple in the organization?
I was really invested in people having fun. Like this is, it was an opportunity of a lifetime to influence this large body of international leaders. And I had no doubt that we had the capability to do it. And that's usually not the place where the failure comes. The failure comes in not understanding the why, not staying connected to how do we how do we want to embody and stand in the position. So, I listened to language, and where language was starting to look at like doubt or uncertainty or misrepresenting in a way what our promise was to the customer. So, listening more deeply to how people were embodying, asking questions to help them see maybe there was more to the story than they were recognizing, offering language that they could use and start to experiment with, um, providing a lot more venues for people to share what they were experiencing as they were learning and starting to introduce themselves into the organization. And it's not a predictable thing. It's organic, it's spontaneous, it's a combination of the energy behind the words and the words that are being used as they're out with the customer representing themselves. And ultimately when the whole team came together in Prague, where they got to meet live with the customer, there was a pride, heads held high, feeling really grateful for the opportunity. Everybody did, and at the same time, with a strong backbone to, we do great work here, and it's
Mhm,
wonderful to be able to support you, customer, in this way.
mhm,
And I don't think the team recognized how valuable that visibility was. But I knew that if given the opportunity, in fact, the customer asked me why I brought so many people. The fact that we had a coaching conference was helpful, but for me, it really was part of the reward, the opportunity to be seen, to contribute, to feel part of something larger than their individual role, because they didn't get a lot of collaboration time. Everybody had their assignments and they needed to execute to pull this thing off. So to me, this was about rewarding them with
mhm.
the opportunity to be together, to travel together, to be seen, to be learning together, and to bring all of that back to what we would do in the next year.
So 2019 is really an epic year, like stepping into something bigger, trusting and holding that North Star shiny and bright so everyone can see and remember and stay aligned. Then we go into COVID. So how did COVID lockdown and ongoing protocols influence your evolution?
Well, I remember you and I were in Seattle at a photographer's studio the day before lockdown happened in Seattle.
Yeah.
And we were doing those photographs to support a social progress conference. Huge, another kind of epic lift, not realizing we'd be doing that in the middle of a pandemic, which was devastating and challenging. But even through that, I mean, that's at the end of the year of 2020. But the momentum we had from feeling the confidence of 2019's work, which was continuing into 2020.
Mhm.
Fortunately, we were all very confident and comfortable in the virtual world since we'd done that since 2007, right? That wasn't an apple cart for us that got turned over. I think for us, we felt the compassion for how much suffering there was. Being part of an international community of coaches and therefore an international community of humans, there was clearly such a traumatic wave of emotion that people were going through, and our our presence and our groundedness and our center, because we were deep in doing the work. We were able to hold space for other people in a way that many could not.
Mhm.
And I think that this is, um, it supersedes the results. And in an ironic kind of way, in doing that, in staying connected to our humanity with each other through that, we still produced results. 2020 ended up being a very productive year for coaching education. as people were realizing, gosh, what do I do with my time? And we rose to that occasion, doing more work in 2020 in our public programs than we did in 2019. No, we didn't skip a beat. And I really think that the continual acknowledgement of people's capability and in return, the team really trusting their own creativity to adapt and adjust, knowing that we had each other's back. And I, made a really clear statement to everybody in the first quarter that no matter what, we would make it through the end of the year. Don't worry about your jobs. Don't worry about needing time to be with your family. We're going to get through this together. And that was unequivocal. So that was the starting position, I think, in a lot of ways, and helped people kind of take an exhale. And then we helped our customers take exhales and, brought some tools forward to walk our talk. We believe in the whole resourceful, capable, creative impulse that is humanity, and it doesn't matter whether it's a flood, a hurricane, a pandemic, a fire, whatever it is, humans inherently will come together and help each other out. And I think we modeled that generative mindset every single day and have continued to throughout this. And I think we do that with each other. I mean, you're describing how we changed meetings. I mean, it was so clear to me in 2020 that nothing was going to get done if people didn't have a place to process what they were experiencing. There's just no room at the inn. The brain is unable to recognize something as resourceful. That's the definition of trauma. Unexpected, isolating, dramatic, and the end result is we don't think we have any capacity to rise to it, and it doesn't feel safe. So addressing the safety question of you have a job, you will always have a job through the end of the year. We'll get through this together. Let's see what we want to do. How do we support the people who are coming towards us? And I think also out of the experience of 2019 with the international customer, everybody was also available to say, what do we want? How do we want to extend ourselves into the community? And send out the beacon of the lighthouse to say, this is a safe harbor.
So Janet, there's a lot of CEOs out there that are stuck. I work with clients who describe meetings where there's zero check-in. What you just described, they haven't, even during COVID, they didn't do it. Now here we are in 2022 on the precipice of 2023. What would you offer to those CEOs who are stuck and they don't even know where to start?
Well, they've already started if they've been able to recognize they're stuck. So the first thing I would do is acknowledge that they have accepted the humility and can be in the vulnerability of, I don't know what to do, but what I'm doing isn't working. And realizing that, well, part of that's personal because you are the top of the house, not all of it is yours. You're at the same affect of the influences in the world that are creating chaos and uncertainty and ambiguity, and it's not business as usual. So if we keep trying to use business as usual methods in an environment that is no longer matching the way we built those business as usual, we're going to continue to be frustrated. So the first thing you have to break in your mindset is that you can fix it. Because it's not a fix scenario. It's not a stop doing this, fix the problem, go back to doing what you did. Got to see that there are some fundamental things that have shifted. And one of those fundamental things is the workforce agreement for giving effort in exchange for a paycheck. An awful lot of organizations missed that, and this has been true for some time, that pay and benefits is like number 10 on a list of top 10 reasons somebody's at an organization. And it's far, far away from the top 3, which are about your relationship with your boss, not whether you got a bonus or not whether you got pat on the head for a good job on a project. Now, which project will you do next, right? But do I have an ongoing channel of two-way communication with my boss? Your relationship with your team? Are you able to have some personal affinity with each other? And do you feel like you've got each other's back? And this is environmental. What's the climate as a leader that we're establishing? And the third is, am I doing work that I'm feeling competent to do and I'm given permission, autonomy to operate? These three things are key. And the minute something comes in that interrupts those three things, as a leader, we have to see it. So that's really the next step. Now that you've figured out you're stuck, you need to really observe the organization with a different pair of glasses on. Notice which managers and leaders have relationships that appear healthy. How do you know? Because the team members freely tell you, I really love my boss, Sarah. I always know that when I'm stuck, I can go brainstorm with her and it's going to get me back on track really quickly. I never feel like I'm going to be made wrong because I made a mistake or something was wrong. By contrast to that's what you hear about other managers. No, I never see my boss. They're never available for one-on-ones. There's no access.
Mhm.
So, and you know, host host opportunities to talk with your workforce. Hear the language that they're using. Are you hearing excitement, enthusiasm, pride, gratitude, opportunity, fun? Are they playful with each other? Or are they dead silent? Are they afraid to speak? Do they give you pablum, repeating the values on the wall, not what's actually happening for them? And pay attention to the where it's discordant, where it's incongruent, because it's going to give you an indication about the health of the climate. And
Mhm.
that's on you and your leaders. If it's not in the quality of experience that you want your employees to have, remember that means that's changing the quality of experience your customers are having. So if
Mm.
you're finding
Mhm.
that the business isn't as vital as you would like it to be, the first place to look is at every touch point that your customers experience your organization. How are your team members doing? Because that's job one as a leader. And, to what we were just talking about, I knew that unless you all knew that I cared about your well-being as human beings first, no discussion about let's make this change, let's pursue this, let's adapt how we're structured, all those things that are a normal part of business in order to meet demand.
Mhm.
They weren't going to land.
Mhm.
It was going to
Mhm.
start to feel autocratic. And I learned my lesson in 2019 is there was no way I could do what we wanted to do alone. It just wasn't possible. So relationship becomes a higher priority, the greater the uncertainty and ambiguity that we're living in.
Janet, a lot of CEOs, speak in interviews about being sort of on an island or isolated. There's some articles written about that. How do you fill your tank? How do you support yourself to be the best CEO you can be?
Not take myself too seriously. Truthfully, it's like I am as ordinary and as human as every member of the team. That we have a structure and different distribution of scope of role and responsibility is the nature of a system. And that's a convenience we make to have people deployed in their sweet spot and distribute responsibilities in order to get more done through. Rather than everybody being an expert. Boy, would that be boring. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
it was.
and
I've heard from, my dad back in the day.
yeah,
He became an entrepreneur rather than sit around those tables.
exactly. And it breeds a level of competition. I'm defined by my work instead of my own sense of purpose and mission and values and principles and alignment to what is it that this organization does on into the world? What's the contribution? I stay connected to what matters to me. If I'm not absolutely thrilled at the work we're doing as an organization, that's on me. I don't get to take that out on everybody else. So paying attention to my own kind of inner compass emotionally, mentally, physically, even spiritually, right? Do I feel like I'm in alignment with what I came into a human body for? What am I here for? What matters to me? And am I giving my time and energy to the things that matter to me? That's like attending to my own wholeness and well-being is job one. Otherwise, I listen with an agenda. I participate in meetings and discussions with a bias that I haven't disclosed, and therefore it becomes manipulative. And how do I know that I've done that? Even because I'm human and I'm going to make mistakes. When people start fighting and pushing back against it, like I've said something foreign, a foreign
Mm-hmm.
object has entered the room. Um, that's usually a clue that maybe I haven't been attending to my own well-being enough and remembered my good skills to ask questions first before telling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, these are small things that I'm sharing, but they are profound influences on whether or not the space of dialogue amongst the team feels ripe with new ideation. No matter what we're doing, there's always something changing. Some curveballs come in, some boomerangs occurred. There's always going to be something that's pushing us off track. The key is, can we see it early? Maybe even anticipate that something's going to create a left turn or a detour of some kind, and be in the creative voice that says, if this, well, we could do that. Well, what's another right answer? Well, another right answer to not. So another a kind of a corollary to don't take myself so seriously is don't take anybody's ideas too seriously. Take them seriously enough to vet them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hypothesize, think about pilots, go test, do some experimenting, keep that tight, and make decisions. I think that's the other piece that's so important is make a decision. And remember that if it doesn't work out exactly like you plan, you learn something. It's like, oh, now that we know that, we can make a slightly different decision. Inaction is going to breed fear and scarcity in the workforce, and no good ideas come out of that mindset.
So, Janet, I notice sometimes because we all have a shared calendar at Invite Change that when I asked you, what are some of the things that feed this, you also put yourself in the fire. You have different pursuits of learning. Tell me about that.
Maybe too many, I don't know. Learning how to write a good talk, learning how to write a book, uh, the things that I do physically to stay fit, self-care, these are all important. As I said earlier, I don't hold myself out as any different than anybody else in the team. I might have a different scope of responsibility because I am an owner, and at the end of the day, the buck really does, like literally the buck stops with me.
See, yeah, yep, yep.
Um, that's that doesn't the rest of how I'm being together with all of you and with our customers isn't any different. Just isn't. And that's a very counter CEO mindset, I'm aware. I think in the old days there used to be more CEOs that had that kind of humility. I miss
Mhm.
it. Edgar Schein is one of our early teachers. He's a social psychologist who's done amazing work in the world, and he's really identified as one of the creators of industrial and organizational psychology. And he and his son are now writing books together on humble leadership and humble inquiry and humble consulting, and
Mhm.
quite
Love it.
interesting. Yeah.
My special thanks to Janet for being candid, open, and generous on how to show up and how to be a generative leader. Truly, the world has changed. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. And yet, COVID is not the culprit for what ails organizations. Visit our website for enterprise solutions and talk with Janet or one of our advisors. Explore what's ready for change in your organization and partner with a team that has over 25 years of experience inviting change. If you're interested in the blog from this conversation, click here for the download. And if you'd like more from Janet M. Harvey, check out her TED Talk on this YouTube channel and her book, Invite Change, Lessons from 2020, the Year of No Return. What are your questions for Janet? Put them in the comments below.